The sound of 100,000 aliens screaming filled the giant arena. Nathan Cole stood in the middle of the sandy floor, breathing hard and covered in blood. Some of it was his own. Most of it was not. He looked up at the crowd that surrounded him on all sides. Strange creatures of every shape and size sat in the seats that rose high into the purple sky. Some had too many eyes. Some had no eyes at all. Some looked like insects, others like reptiles, and a few looked like nothing Nathan had ever seen before. 6 months ago, Nathan had been a simple cargo pilot. He flew supply ships between Earth and the outer colonies, carrying food and medicine to settlers who lived far from home. It was quiet work, but he liked it. He liked the peace of space and the feeling of helping people. Then the Dravokians came. They were a species that made their living by capturing beings from other worlds and selling them as slaves. Nathan's ship had no weapons. He had no way to fight back when their warship pulled him from the darkness of space and dragged him aboard in chains. They brought him to Nexus Prime, a world at the center of a vast alien empire. Here, the Dravokians and their allies held the Galactic Trials, a fighting tournament where warriors from across the universe battled for the entertainment of the crowds. The losers died. The winners became famous. Nathan was supposed to die in the first round. The aliens who ran the tournament thought humans were weak. They were small compared to most species. They had no claws, no armor, no venom. They could not see in the dark or breathe underwater. To the Dravokians, humans were nothing more than easy prey, but they had made a mistake. They did not understand what humans were capable of when they had no choice but to survive. Nathan's first opponent was a creature called a Brak, a mountain of muscle and teeth that stood 3 meters tall. Everyone expected Nathan to die within seconds. Instead, he dodged and ran and waited until the Brak grew tired from chasing him. Then he climbed onto its back and choked it until it fell. The crowd had been stunned into silence. His second opponent was faster, a snake-like being with 4 arms and blades built into its bones. Nathan let it cut him, let it think it was winning, and then he grabbed one of its arms and broke it at the joint. It used its own blade to end the fight. Battle after battle, Nathan survived. He learned to watch his opponents before each fight, to study how they moved and where they were weak. He learned that most alien warriors were arrogant. They had never faced an enemy who refused to give up, who kept fighting even when victory seemed impossible. Nathan Cole did not know how to give up. It simply was not in his nature. Now, after 6 months of blood and pain, he stood as the champion of the Galactic Trials. The last human standing, the only human who had ever won. The crowd fell silent as a massive figure rose from a throne at the edge of the arena. This was the Grand Arbiter, the ruler of the games. It was an insect-like creature, tall and thin, with a head covered in compound eyes that reflected the light like broken mirrors. It wore robes of deep red and gold, and when it spoke, its mandibles clicked together between words. Human designation Nathan Cole, the Arbiter announced, its voice carrying across the arena through speakers hidden in the walls. You have proven yourself in combat. You have earned the right to a reward. As is tradition, you will be given the choice of spoils. Nathan said nothing. He simply waited, his body tense and ready. 2 figures were led into the arena by guards in black armor. They were both female, both members of a species Nathan had never seen before. They were humanoid in shape, but their skin was unlike anything on Earth. One had skin like polished silver, smooth and gleaming. Her eyes were deep violet, and they held a quiet strength that Nathan recognized. The other had skin the color of pale gold, her eyes a shimmering green that burned with anger and defiance. Both of them wore chains on their wrists and ankles. Both of them wore the torn clothing of prisoners. These are Volanti, the Arbiter explained. They were captured during the Border Wars. The silver one is called Kira. She is a healer with great skill in the telepathic arts. The golden one is called Zara. She is a warrior who killed 17 of our soldiers before she was brought down. Nathan looked at the two women. Kira met his gaze calmly, her violet eyes searching his face as if trying to read his thoughts. Zara glared at him with open hatred, her body coiled like a spring ready to explode. You may choose one as your prize, the Arbiter continued. The other will be sent to the mining colonies in the outer reaches. The work there is hard, and few survive more than a year. Choose wisely, champion. The arena fell quiet. 100,000 aliens waited to see which woman Nathan would condemn to death. Nathan looked at Kira, at the quiet dignity she maintained even in chains. He looked at Zara, at the fire in her eyes that refused to be extinguished even after everything she had suffered. He thought about what it meant to be human. He thought about the values his parents had taught him, about treating others the way you wanted to be treated. He thought about the long history of his species, all the times they had failed to live up to their ideals, and all the times they had found the courage to try again. Then he made his choice. I choose both, Nathan said. His words echoed across the silent arena. For a moment, nothing happened. The aliens in the crowd looked at each other in confusion. The guards holding the chains on the two women froze in place. Even Kira and Zara stared at him with wide eyes. Unable to believe what they had heard, the Grand Arbiter leaned forward on its throne, its compound eyes glittering with something that might have been surprise or might have been anger. That is not how this works. Human, it said, and its voice was cold as ice. You are given one choice, one prize. This is the way of things. This is how it has always been. Nathan stood his ground. His heart was pounding in his chest, but he kept his voice steady. Then I guess we are going to have to change the way of things, he said. And in that moment, everything changed. The Grand Arbiter stared at Nathan with all of its many eyes. The insect creature had ruled over the galactic trials for more than 200 years. In all that time, no champion had ever tried to change the rules. No one had ever dared until now. You do not understand your position, human, the Arbiter said slowly. You are a slave who was given the honor of fighting in our arena. You won, yes, but that does not give you the right to make demands. You will choose one of the Volanti, or you will choose neither. Those are your only options. Nathan took a step forward. Immediately, a dozen guards raised their weapons and pointed them at his chest. He ignored them. I understand my position perfectly, Nathan said. I am the first human to ever win your tournament. I fought every opponent you put in front of me. I bled on your sand and gave your crowd something to cheer about. I made you money. He pointed at the screens that floated above the arena, showing his face and the faces of the two Volanti women. Numbers scrolled beneath the images, showing the bets that had been placed on the outcome of his choice. Billions of credits, Nathan continued. That is how much has been wagered on what happens next. Your betting houses are making fortunes from this moment. Your sponsors are watching. Your investors are counting their profits. The Arbiter's mandibles clicked together rapidly. It was angry, Nathan could tell, but it was also listening. So here is what I am offering, Nathan said. I will take both women. Not one, both. In return, you get to tell everyone that the impossible happened in your arena today. You get the story of the human who broke the rules and won. Think of how many people will tune in to watch next year, hoping to see something just as shocking. And if I refuse? The Arbiter asked. Then I walk away. I take neither prize and leave your arena empty-handed. You explain to your sponsors why the most exciting champion in 300 cycles walked away from everything. You explain to the betting houses why all those wagers have to be returned. Nathan smiled, though there was no warmth in it. And then you explain to everyone in this arena why a single Human was able to embarrass the mighty Dravokian Empire in front of the entire galaxy. The silence that followed was so complete that Nathan could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. He was taking an enormous risk. He had no idea if his bluff would work. The Arbiter could simply have him killed and choose a new story to tell the crowds. But Nathan had learned something important during his time in the fighting pits. The Dravokians did not care about honor or fairness. They cared about two things: money and power. If Nathan could make them believe that keeping him alive was more profitable than killing him, he might just survive. The Arbiter was silent for a long moment. Its compound eyes seemed to look in 100 different directions at once. Nathan could almost see it calculating, weighing the costs and benefits of each possible outcome. Finally, the creature made a sound that might have been laughter. "You are clever for a human," it said. "Perhaps that is why you survived when so many others did not. Very well, take them both. Let it never be said that the galactic trials do not reward boldness." A wave of murmurs swept through the crowd. Some of the aliens seemed angry. Others seemed excited. A few were already shouting at each other, arguing about what this meant for their bets. Nathan did not care about any of them. He turned to face the two Velanti women. Kira was looking at him with an expression he could not read. Her violet eyes were calm but curious, as if she was trying to understand what kind of creature he was. Zara's expression was easier to read. She was suspicious. Her green eyes watched him the way a predator watches something that might be a threat. She did not trust him. Nathan could not blame her for that. "Come on," he said quietly. "We need to leave before they change their minds." One of the guards stepped forward and removed the chains from the women's wrists. As soon as she was free, Zara rubbed at the marks the chains had left on her golden skin. Her hands curled into fists, and for a moment Nathan thought she might attack him. Instead, she simply nodded once. "I do not know why you did this," she said. Her voice was low and rough, as if she had not used it in a long time. "But I will remember it. I did it because it was the right thing to do," Nathan said. Zara looked at him as if he had said something in a language she did not understand. Then she turned and walked toward the arena exit without another word. Kira lingered for a moment. She reached out and touched Nathan's arm with her silver fingers. A strange warmth spread through his body, and he felt some of the pain from his wounds fade away. "Thank you," she said softly. "Whatever happens next, thank you for this." Then she followed Zara toward the exit. Leaving Nathan alone in the middle of the arena, the Grand Arbiter's voice echoed behind him as he walked away. "Enjoy your victory, human. But know this. The Velanti were promised a powerful people. Important people. They will not forget that you took what was meant to be theirs. You have made enemies today, but you cannot even imagine." Nathan paused at the arena gate and looked back over his shoulder. "I have been making enemies since the moment I arrived here," he said. "A few more will not make a difference." Then he walked through the gate and into the unknown. They gave him a ship. It was old and broken, a cargo hauler that had seen better days. The engines wheezed and coughed when Nathan tried to start them. The life support systems flickered on and off. The navigation computer took 3 tries to boot up, but it was a ship. It could fly. And right now, that was all that mattered. Nathan found Kyra and Zara waiting for him in the cargo bay. They sat on opposite sides of the room, as far from each other as they could get. Neither of them spoke. "The ship is not much," Nathan said as he entered. "But it should get us to human space if we are lucky." Zara looked up at him with hard eyes. "And what happens when we get there? What do you want from us?" "Nothing," Nathan said. "When we reach Earth, you will be free to go wherever you want. I am not your owner. I am just the person trying to get you out of here." Zara snorted in disbelief. No one does something for nothing. What is your price? Nathan met her gaze without flinching. My price is that you survive, he said. My price is that the people who put you in chains do not get to keep you. That is all I want. He turned and walked toward the cockpit, leaving the two women alone. Behind him, he heard Kyra speak in a quiet voice. I think he means it, she said. Zara did not respond. The ship groaned and shook as it pushed through the empty void of space. Nathan sat in the pilot's chair, watching the stars drift past the cracked window. They had been flying for 3 days now, and every hour felt like a small victory dot behind him. The ship's engines made a sound that no healthy engine should ever make. Something between a cough and a scream. Nathan tried not to think about it. If the engines failed out here, they would drift forever in the darkness between stars. No one would ever find them. He checked the navigation computer for the 100th time. They were still on course. Another 2 weeks until they reached the edge of human space. 2 weeks of hoping the ship held together. 2 weeks of praying they did not run into any Dravokian patrols. A soft footstep behind him made Nathan turn. Kyra stood in the doorway of the cockpit, her silver skin glowing faintly in the dim light of the control panels. You should rest, she said. You have not slept in almost 2 days. I will rest when we are safe, Nathan replied. Kira walked closer and sat in the empty co-pilot chair beside him. For a moment, she simply looked at the stars outside the window. Her violet eyes reflected the distant lights like tiny mirrors. I have been trying to understand you, she said finally. In my experience, people do not take risks without expecting something in return. But you risked everything in that arena. You made enemies of the most powerful empire in this part of the galaxy. Why? Nathan was quiet for a long moment. He thought about how to explain something that seemed so obvious to him but apparently made no sense to anyone else. Where I come from, he said slowly, we have this idea. It says that all people are created equal, that everyone deserves the same basic rights, freedom, dignity, the chance to live their own life without someone else controlling them. And you believe this applies to us as well? To Volanthi? I believe it applies to everyone, human or not. Kara tilted her head, studying him with those strained violet eyes. Your species is very young. You have only been traveling among the stars for a few hundred years. Most species at your level of development are still fighting among themselves, still learning what it means to share the universe with others. We are still learning too, Nathan admitted. We have made a lot of mistakes. We have hurt each other in terrible ways. But we keep trying to be better. That is the thing about humans. We never stop trying. Kyra smiled softly. It was the first time Nathan had seen her smile. Perhaps that is why I find your species so interesting, she said. You are not the strongest or the fastest or the smartest. But you refuse to accept that things cannot change. A loud crash from somewhere in the back of the ship made them both jump. Nathan was on his feet in an instant, his hand reaching for the weapon at his belt. It is probably nothing, Kyra said quickly. Just something falling in the cargo bay. But Nathan was already moving. He walked quickly through the narrow corridor that connected the cockpit to the rest of the ship. The lights flickered above him as he passed, casting strange shadows on the metal walls. He found the source of the noise in the engine room. Zara was standing in front of an open panel, her golden hands covered in grease and her green eyes burning with frustration. The secondary coolant line is cracked, she said without looking at him. If we do not fix it, the engine will overheat within 6 hours. Nathan blinked in surprise. You know how to repair engines? I was a warrior, Zara said coldly. But I was not stupid. I learned many things during my years of service, including how to keep a ship flying when it wants to die. She turned back to the open panel and began working on something Nathan could not see. Her movements were quick and precise, the hands of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. "You could have told me there was a problem," Nathan said. "You were busy flying the ship. I did not need your permission to fix what needed fixing." Nathan almost smiled. "No, I suppose you did not." He leaned against the wall and watched her work. After a few minutes, Zara spoke again without turning around. "The healer told me what you said, about your people believing that everyone deserves freedom." "She did?" "She did." Zara paused in her work but did not turn to face him. "Is it true? Do your people really believe that?" "Many of us do. Not all, but many." Zara was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer than Nathan had ever heard it. "My people believed something similar once, before the consortium came and burned our cities and took our children. We believed that all life was sacred, that every soul deserved the chance to find its own path." She finally turned to look at him. Her green eyes were filled with something that might have been pain or might have been hope trying to survive against all odds. "We were wrong to believe that. The universe proved us wrong. But perhaps your people will have better luck than we did." Nathan took a step closer. "What happened to your world? It still exists, but it belongs to the consortium now. Our people work in their factories and mines. Our children grow up learning to serve our masters." Zara's hands curled into fists at her sides. "I escaped once when I was young. I joined the resistance. I fought for 20 years, trying to free my people. And in the end, I was captured and sent to die in the arena. But you did not die. No, a strange human decided to break the rules and take me with him." Zara's lips curved into something that was almost a smile. "I still do not understand why you did it, but I'm starting to think that maybe I do not need to understand. Maybe it is enough that you did it at all." She turned back to the engine and finished her repairs. When she was done, the terrible screaming noise from the engine faded to a gentle hum. "The ship will hold together now," she said. "At least for a while longer." "Thank you," Nathan said. Zara nodded once. "Do not thank me yet, human. We still have a long way to go." She walked past him toward the corridor, then stopped at the doorway. "My name is Zara," she said. "Not warrior, not prisoner, Zara." "I know," Nathan said softly. Something shifted in her expression. Not quite trust, not yet, but the beginning of something that might grow into trust with time. "Get some sleep, Nathan," she said. "I will watch the engines. Kira can take the helm for a few hours. You are no use to any of us if you collapse from exhaustion." Then she was gone, leaving Nathan alone in the engine room with the soft hum of the repaired machinery. For the first time since his capture 6 months ago, Nathan allowed himself to feel something like hope. The alarm screamed through the ship like a wounded animal. Nathan jerked awake from his sleep, his heart pounding and his mind struggling to understand what was happening. "Nathan!" Kira's voice came through the speaker above his bed. "We have company." He was running before he was fully awake. His feet carried him through the narrow corridors, past the cargo bay, and into the cockpit where Kira sat in the pilot's chair. Her silver hands moved quickly over the controls, her violet eyes fixed on the viewing screen. 3 ships hung in space ahead of them. They were small and fast, built for hunting and killing. Their black hulls were marked with the red symbol of the Dravokian Consortium. "They came out of nowhere," Kira said. "They must have been waiting for us, hiding in the shadow of that asteroid field." Nathan's blood ran cold. "Can we outrun them? In this ship?" "No. They are already charging their weapons." Zara appeared in the doorway behind them. Her golden eyes took in the situation in a single glance. "Give me a weapon," she said. Her voice was calm, but there was fire burning beneath the surface. Nathan pulled the plasma pistol from his belt and tossed it to her without hesitation. She caught it in one smooth motion and checked the charge. "Can you fly this ship?" Nathan asked. Zara pushed past him and slid into the pilot's chair as Kyra moved aside. Her hands found the controls as if she had been born to fly. "Better than you can," she said. "What is your plan?" Nathan's mind was racing. The enemy ships were faster and better armed. They could not win in a straight fight. They needed something else. Something unexpected. "The Dravokians are slavers," he said. "They do not want to destroy us. They want to capture us alive. That means they will try to board us instead of blowing us apart. And that helps us how?" Kyra asked. "Because if they board us, we can fight them on our terms." Nathan turned and ran toward the cargo bay. "Keep them busy. Keep us moving. I need 5 minutes." The ship lurched violently as Zara threw it into a spinning evasion pattern. Nathan slammed into the wall but kept moving. Behind him, he could hear the weapons of the enemy ships firing. Could feel the impacts as their shots hit the ship's shields. The cargo bay was full of supplies they had taken from Nexus Prime: food, water, medical equipment, and something else. Something Nathan had noticed when he first came aboard, but had not thought much about until now: mining charges. Small explosive devices used to break apart asteroids for their valuable minerals. Dangerous in the wrong hands. Deadly if used correctly. Nathan grabbed the charges and began setting them up around the cargo bay. He placed them behind crates, above doorways, in the corners where shadows would hide them. He connected them to a trigger he could hold in his hand. The ship shook again, harder this time. The lights flickered and died, leaving only the red emergency lighting to see by. "They have destroyed our shields." Zara's voice came over the speaker. "They are moving in to dock." "Let them," Nathan said. "Just get us pointed in the right direction. When I tell you, hit the engines hard and do not stop until we reach human space." There was a moment of silence. Then Zara's voice came back, filled with something that might have been respect. Understood. Nathan could hear them cutting through the hull. The screech of metal being torn apart filled the ship like a scream. He pressed himself against the wall behind a stack of crates and waited. The first Dravokian soldiers came through the breach in a wave of black armor and glowing weapons. They were big, nearly 2 meters tall, with 4 arms and heads covered in hard shells. Their eyes scanned the cargo bay, looking for their prey. "Find the human and the Volanti," the lead soldier ordered. "The masters want them alive, if possible. Dead if necessary." Nathan waited until 6 of them were inside. Then he pressed the trigger. The explosion tore through the cargo bay like a living thing. Fire and light and force combined into a single moment of destruction. The Dravokian soldiers never had a chance to scream. Nathan was thrown backward by the blast. His ears rang and his vision blurred. But he forced himself to his feet and kept moving. More soldiers were pouring through the breach. Nathan fired his remaining weapon into their ranks, not aiming carefully, just trying to slow them down. He retreated toward the corridor that led to the rest of the ship. Zara met him halfway. She moved like water, flowing around the enemy with a grace that seemed impossible. The plasma pistol in her hand fired again and again, each shot finding its target with perfect accuracy. "The healer!" Nathan shouted over the chaos. "Where's Kyra?" "Here." Kyra's voice came from behind him. Her silver hands were pressed against the wall, her eyes glowing with a strange inner light. "I am doing what I can." The Dravokian soldiers began to stumble. They turned on each other, firing at their own allies, screaming in confusion. Nathan realized what was happening. Kira was using her telepathic abilities to disrupt their neural links, the communication system that allowed them to coordinate their attacks. "Move!" Zara shouted. She grabbed Nathan's arm and pulled him toward the cockpit. They ran through the corridors of the dying ship. Behind them, The Dravokian soldiers fought each other in blind confusion. Ahead of them, freedom waited among the stars. Nathan threw himself into the pilot's chair and grabbed the controls. The ship was badly damaged, trailing fire and debris behind it. But the engines still worked. That was all he needed. "Hold on," he said. He pushed the engines to full power. The ship groaned in protest but obeyed. They shot forward through the darkness, leaving the Dravokian ships behind. One of the enemy vessels tried to follow, but something was wrong with it. It spun wildly out of control and crashed into its companion ship in a bloom of fire and destruction. "What happened?" Nathan asked. Kyra collapsed into the seat beside him, exhausted. "I reached into the pilot's mind. Made him forget how to fly." Zara stood at the back of the cockpit, watching the destruction on the viewing screen. A rare smile crossed her golden features. "Remind me never to make you angry," she said. Nathan laughed despite everything. They were wounded and exhausted. Their ship was falling apart around them. But they were alive. And they were free. "We are not safe yet," he said. "We still have a long way to go." Zara put her hand on his shoulder. It was a simple gesture, but it meant more than words could express. "Then we keep going," she said. "Together." And so they did. The ship was dying. Nathan knew it with every groan of the metal and every flicker of the lights. They had pushed the old cargo hauler far beyond its limits, and now it was finally giving up. But they were so close. The navigation computer showed the border of human space only 3 days away. 3 more days, and they would be safe. "The oxygen recycler is failing again," Kira said. She sat beside the machine, her silver hands pressed against its surface. Her violet eyes glowed faintly as she used her healing abilities to keep it working. "I can hold it together for a while longer, but I am getting tired." Nathan nodded. They were all tired. They had been flying for 3 weeks, surviving on emergency rations and hope. Every day brought new problems. The engines failed and had to be restarted. The hull developed cracks that needed patching. The heating system broke and left them shivering in the cold darkness of space. But they kept going. They had no other choice. Zara emerged from the engine room, her golden skin covered in grease and her green eyes heavy with exhaustion. "I have done everything I can. The engines will hold for another few days, maybe a week. After that, we will be drifting." "A week is enough," Nathan said. "We will make it." Zara sat down on a crate and leaned her head back against the wall. For a long moment, she was silent. Then she spoke in a voice so quiet that Nathan almost missed it. "Tell me about your home." Nathan looked at her in surprise. In all the weeks they had spent together, Zara had never asked about Earth. She had seemed more interested in forgetting the past than learning about the future. "What do you want to know?" he asked. "Everything. Tell me about the world you come from. Tell me why you believe the things you believe." So Nathan told her. He told her about the blue oceans that covered most of his planet and the green forests that grew on the land between them. He told her about cities that lit up at night like fields of stars, and small towns where everyone knew each other by name. He told her about the history of his people, the wars they had fought against each other, the terrible things they had done in the name of power and fear, but also the moments when they had risen above their worst impulses, the times when ordinary people had stood up against injustice and said that enough was enough. "We call them human rights," Nathan explained. "The idea that every person deserves certain things just because they exist. Food and shelter. Freedom to speak their mind. The right to live without fear of being owned by someone else." "And your people truly believe this?" Kyra asked. She had moved closer to listen, her exhaustion forgotten for the moment. "Not all of them. There are still people who believe that some lives matter more than others. But most of us, yes. We believe that freedom is something worth fighting for." worth dying for, if necessary. Zara was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. My people believed that once, before the consortium came and taught us that belief alone was not enough. Belief is never enough by itself, Nathan agreed. It has to be followed by action, by people who are willing to stand up and protect what they believe in. He looked at the two women who had become his companions over these long weeks. Kira, the healer, whose gentle spirit hid a strength that had kept them alive more times than he could count. Zara, the warrior, whose fierce heart had not been broken even by years of captivity and pain. But that is the thing about humans, Nathan said. We are stubborn. When we believe in something, we do not give up. We fight for it, even when the odds are against us. Even when everyone tells us we cannot win. 3 days later, they crossed the border into human space. The patrol ship that found them was called the Horizon, a sleek military vessel that made their dying cargo. Hauler looked like a children's toy. The captain was a woman named Linda Torres. She was small but fierce, with gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything at once. When she saw Nathan's group stumble onto her bridge, her face broke into a warm smile. Nathan Cole, she said. The cargo pilot who disappeared 6 months ago. We searched for you for weeks before we had to give up. I took a longer route home than expected, Nathan said. Torres looked at Kyra and Zara. She took in their alien features. The marks on their wrists where chains had once been. The wary look in their eyes. Friends of yours? She asked. Nathan felt Kyra's hand slip into his. He felt Zara move closer to his side. Family, he said simply. Torres nodded slowly. The consortium has no power here. Whatever happened out there, you are safe now. 3 months later, Nathan stood in a small apartment on Luna Station. Through the window, he could see Earth hanging in the blackness of space. A beautiful blue marble covered in swirling white clouds behind him. Kira was tending to a collection of plants she had been growing. She hummed softly as she worked, a melody from her homeworld that she said helped things grow. The plants seemed to respond to her touch, reaching toward her silver fingers like children reaching for their mother. Zara sat in a chair nearby, reading through files on her tablet. She had become fascinated with human military history, studying the wars and battles that had shaped Nathan's species. She said she wanted to understand how humans had learned to protect themselves. Nathan suspected she was also making plans of her own. The asylum papers came through, Kira said, looking up from her plants. We have been granted permanent residency. We can stay as long as we want. Zara set down her tablet and walked over to join them at the window. The three of them stood together, looking at the world that had become their new home. It is strange, Zara said softly. For so long, I fought to free my people. I failed. I was captured and sent to die. And now I stand here, free, looking at a world I never knew existed. You did not fail, Nathan said. You survived. And as long as you survive, there is hope. Kyra took his hand in hers. Her silver fingers were warm against his skin. What happens now? She asked. Nathan thought about everything they had been through. The arena, the escape, the battles and the long journey home. He thought about two women who had been chained and broken, and who had found the strength to keep going even when everything seemed hopeless. Now we live, he said. We build something new. And someday, when the time is right, we go back and help free the others who are still in chains. Zara smiled. It was a real smile, full of warmth and hope and something that might have been love. I think I am going to like being part of this family, she said. Nathan put his arm around her shoulder and pulled her close. On his other side, Kira leaned her head against his chest. They stood together in the light of Earth. Three souls from different worlds, bound together by something stronger than chains. And somewhere in the darkness of space, the Dravokian Consortium was learning a lesson that many had learned before them. Humans do not abandon their own, and they do not leave anyone behind. The end.